Okay, somebody press mute on Mary Lou, please.
Bottom one.
Room 5?
Yeah.
Hello? Oh, that's loud. Okay, am I too loud? Does it sound okay? Well, I can hold it down here now. We have the better mics.
Don't hold it too far. You get all
How's that? Okay, this feels better. Well, good morning, everyone. And yes, Allison's still here today. I don't have many announcements. I'd like to start with our MVP of the month of May. Thank you. It's just an announcement. You don't have to say that. Lizzie, do you want to come up? So, for anyone who's not familiar, every month we get nomination forms from, it's not just directors, it can be coworkers, anyone that has something special to say about one of our employees. And we like to embarrass them in front of all of you at Friday Coffee Hour. And this one is, I'm like, who's Elizabeth Nelson? Oh, it's Lizzie. All right. So the nomination came from one of her coworkers in our marketing department, Michelle Birmingham. And it says, Lizzie is a part-time in health center admissions and part-time marketing assistant. Newish in the marketing department, though not the Fox Run, has proven that she can pull up her bootstraps and dig in when necessary. Assisted Living recently held its first ever open house for our independent community members, and I know many of you have attended. Due to extenuating circumstances at hour 11, it was apparent that Lizzie needed to oversee this event. In no time at all, Lindsay had tour guides lined up in place, marketing materials arranged, staffed the ice cream shop, helped make 6 flower arrangements and place them appropriately, and make sure the model apartment was ready, designated staff to fluff pillows, straighten pictures, etc. I'm getting feedback on this. I can hear it. Okay. Lizzie also found time to make ice cream sundae coupons and pass out all of those to the assisted living tour, to count participants after everyone had ice cream. I was so impressed with Lizzie's cool, calm, and collected manner addressing and guiding all volunteers as though she wasn't fazed. Don't forget, this extra excitement caused a disruption in the assisted living schedule, which was also handled with grace and understanding. Seeing Lizzie take charge as if this open house is no big deal really showed me what she's made of. Lizzie is a quiet and hard worker who will come in on weekends for tours, stay late for tours, has an innate disposition of respect for seniors, and certainly has shown Fox Run her commitment and integrity in her work. Though a younger member of the team, don't let her age fool you, this Fox Run employee balances 2 positions with finesse and dignity. Way to go, Lizzie. I can tell you when this event was planned, it's kind of a big deal because we had never done one before. And again, due to extenuating circumstances, we really kind of dumped everything on Lizzie, and she just took it and so calm and relaxed and just handled it, and it turned out to be an absolute home run of an event. So Lizzie, thank you so much for everything you do. Kind of on a funny, well, I'll hand the mic over a minute. It's my turn, Janice.
Oh, yeah.
So, kind of a funny moment, we had our marketing meeting on Tuesday, and I get this form from Human Resources, and I brought out the envelope, and I was about to sign it, and Lizzie's sitting right across from my desk, and I realized who was sitting there and who was the winner, so it was not a surprise. She saw the form in advance. I tried to hide it as quickly as possible, so did you want to say anything?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Thank you.
And Lizzie, honestly, so on the marketing side, she's just such a breath of fresh air. If you have to work with the marketing folks as much as I do, you really need that. Okay, quick announcements. So we are making our switch to happy hour 3 days a week. And that will be happening on May 20th. I know some people thought it was happening this week already. May 20th. So that'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, happy hours from now on. And starting Monday, on May 6th, Spectrum will be here, and they're going to go into every apartment and change out the Spectrum boxes. So those boxes are becoming obsolete, and Spectrum needs to upgrade them, and there's probably over 400 boxes that they have to change throughout the community. So, and I just want to warn you because they're going to be knocking on your door. They will have to come in, they'll change the boxes. If you have Verizon, they still have to come in, and we're putting a box in the cabinet above your fridge just so we know it's there, because we need to have one in the apartment. So, and it's probably going to take all week. So be patient, stay tuned, and if you have any questions, don't be afraid to talk to Matt Lawless. Yes, you have a question?
Yeah, is it gonna be just one, unless we have two TVs and they're gonna change?
If you have 2 TVs and 2 boxes, they will do 2 new boxes. So they're replacing everything. And that's in the health center too. Yes, Dick?
Patio homes?
Yes, they'll be coming to patio homes as well. It'll all be next week. Janice?
Will there be an employee with them?
Yes, there will be. So the first day, Matt is going to assign 2 maintenance workers to work with them until we kind of get a routine. And then it may go down to 1, but there'll be somebody with them. I'm looking in the back, Matt's nodding. He's like, you're doing good, Bill.
The boxes will have an on-screen guide.
What's that?
The boxes will have an on-screen guide too.
The boxes will have an on-screen guide too.
Will they come in if we're not there?
Yes, will they come, well, maintenance will have their key, so they'll be with them. So if you're not there, there will be somebody with them. Okay, next, let's see, well, that's all I have. Oh, wait, no, please stay after our presentation. I'm very excited about our speaker. When we're going to do a special presentation on the new Volante system, that's the dining system, and you'll be able to access all of your accounts, your balances, through an app on your phone. So we'll have a couple folks here staying after to show you how that works. So if you're interested in that, please stay, and there'll be plenty of coffee. Okay, Becky.
Thank you. All right, some of you know that I have a May water challenge going on right now, so if you haven't grabbed your sheet, there's some on the bulletin board, there's some in the fitness center also, and if there's none there, just let me know and I'll give you one. What it is basically to try to encourage you to drink more water. There's a lot of people that don't drink enough water, and summer is coming, and a big reason why people end up in the ER is because of dehydration. And it's a simple fix. Drink your water, okay? You're sweating, and your body needs that to cool itself down. So if you get overheated because you're dehydrated, you're gonna end up in the ER. So anyways, but it's fun, and I've got a lot of good feedback already. So drink your water, and make sure you hand it in to myself or Pamela by June 4th, okay? And your name will be put into a drawing for a prize. Yes, do you have a question?
I wonder if you could pause the program. I have to go to the bathroom.
Yes, I've been getting a lot of statements, asking me, does this count? Does bourbon count? No, it does not. Some people said, are you trying to drown me? No, I didn't make up these rules, all right? I'm just encouraging you to drink your water. So, have fun.
The only announcement I had is we have a new community member in the audience, Miss Dale Rothbell. Dale, would you wave? Our community within the past couple weeks from her home in Connecticut, so she's been settling into life here. So please, if you haven't introduced yourself or said hi, make sure we welcome her. We're excited she's here with us. And next, I would like to bring up Alona Klein to introduce our speaker today.
Good morning, good morning. Good morning, thank you. Penn-Dixie. Penn-Dixie is in Blaisdell, New York, where I have lived for all of my life. So you know how long I've known Penn-Dixie. However, I'm wrong, because I didn't really realize what Penn-Dixie was for a long time. My grandson started working there. I used to take him and pick him up on occasion. He's been there now for maybe 6 or 7 years. So the last time I went to a benefit and I met this gentleman whom I really love. Anyway, so that's all I'm going to say as far as my knowledge of Penn-Dixie. So, Dr. Stokes earned his bachelor's and master's degrees at UB and his PhD at the University of Arizona in geological science. His thesis work used ground-penetrating radar to search for mastodon bones and to map glacial deposited units of the Ice Age. Dr. Stokes now is the executive director of the nearby Penn-Dixie Fossil Park and Nature Reserve. Penn-Dixie ranked #1 in the U.S. as the largest fossil dig, setting a Guinness World Record. Each year, thousands of visitors come to Penn-Dixie from all over the world. In his spare time, Phil likes to play the guitar and the ukulele. Maybe he brought it with him. I don't know. Travel and stargaze. Please welcome, with a round of applause, Dr. Phil Stokes.
Hey everyone, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So thank you, Alona, that was wonderful. Thank you, Bill. And thank you, Fox Run. So this is amazing. This is actually my first time coming to this community. I live in Hamburg, not very far from here, and I've driven past the driveway quite a few times, but never actually visited. So this is wonderful. I also need to thank Erie County and the town of Hamburg, both of whom fund Penn-Dixie. We're a nonprofit organization. We get some government money. We do a lot of fundraising, and that supports our staff and our maintenance and everything, and helps us to be able to go out in the community and do what we do. So the story this morning is, it's going to be kind of an interesting one. So I'm going to tell you the tale of the new species that was discovered last spring. And I found this very interesting quote from the author Isaac Asimov. If you're into science fiction, you probably would recognize the name. Isaac says here, the most exciting phrase to hear in science, the one that heralds new discoveries, is not eureka, but that's funny. So, some common questions we get here. Takes the first one. That first, right? And they're in the parking lot near the driveway. Another one we get is who put the fossils here. And of course, it's Mother Nature and Father Time. How did we get our name? The place that we work in now was previously owned by the Pennsylvania Dixie Cement Company. Now, we have no affiliation with them. They went out of business decades ago, but we retained the name because it was sort of a local flavor. And why are the rocks called Devonian? We'll find out. So this is a chart that was put together by an artist named Ray Troll. And it's a really good illustration that shows you geological time from billions of years ago up to the present at the top. And it's kind of cartoonish, but it shows you the different fossils that you find from animals that were alive at the different time periods. And where we are here in Western New York is the Devonian period, which is right in the middle of the Paleozoic era, which, if you notice, is before dinosaurs were around. So the fossils we find in Western New York are from animals that lived before dinosaurs. Now, what was going on in the Earth during the Devonian period? It was a really interesting time for life. We had the first plants appearing on land. And this is an example of a plant called Aglophyton, which was a really odd plant, which did not have vascular tissue like modern plants, but instead had conducting cells, and it was really similar to the mosses that we find today. There were also no leaves to turn sunlight into food. There were not roots to extract water from the ground or nutrients. And so it was a really odd duck kind of plant, but it was one of the first plants. And believe it or not, it still has modern relatives around, known as club mosses and lycopods. Now this is an image that'll give you sort of an artist's interpretation of what the Earth looked like during the Devonian period. And you'll notice there's a lot of rocky, jagged landscapes. And this is because there wasn't a lot of soil being formed at the time. And, right, you need plants to form soil, you need weathering and erosion. And those processes were just starting to establish here with the soil formation. And so you'll notice the plants here are sort of digging into the rocks, but really, there's not much dirt or anything. Now, if you've seen the movie Under Little Mermaid, 1989, I remember seeing this with my sister in the theater. Sebastian the Crab says, he has the whole song and dance about life under the sea being better, right? So Ariel, the Little Mermaid, wants to marry Prince Eric. She sees him on a ship, but he lives on land. So Sebastian sings his little song, under the sea is better. And I think during the Devonian period that was the case. Most of the life on Earth was under the sea. This is an illustration by an artist named Mike Magnasco, and it shows you some of the animals that were alive at the time. So this is an ammonite. It's basically a relative of a squid. Modern day relatives would include the cuttlefish. There's also an animal called the nautilus, which closely resembles an ammonite. And then if you go a little bit deeper into the water, these are the animals that were living on the ocean floor. This, of course, is our famous fossil. Probably the second most popular fossil after dinosaurs would be the trilobite. These little shelled animals here are called brachiopods. We have the snail shell, of course, and then one of those, a different type of squid called an orthicone, and that's eating one of the trilobites. Now, this chart in the scientific world is called a cladogram, and what it shows you is essentially the different families of animals through time. So if we look on this column, you'll see the geologic time periods, and then across here are the different families of fish. And what's really interesting, so the Devonian is also known as the Age of Fishes. It is a time in Earth's history when we had the most diversity of fish ever, meaning there were the most types of species. And there were a whole bunch of different types of species that we don't see anymore, including these animals called the placoderms, which were armored fish. We also had the spiny sharks, which didn't live for too long. And then we had lobefin fishes. And then really the ancestors of modern fish today, those would be the rayfin fishes. So Devonian was an interesting time for sure. And this is sort of a classic illustration from over 100 years ago by a guy named Joseph Smith. And it'll show you some examples here. Let's see if I can get this laser to work. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have a shark. We have some of these lobefin fish here. You'll notice they look kind of similar to modern fish, except they have maybe different looking fins, and then a big fin on the back sometimes. And then this is one of those placoderms, or the armored fish. And instead of having a skeleton like we do with a central vertebral column and ribs and everything, they had armored plates on the outside of their body. And then that was their bony structure. Now, during the Devonian period, Earth was really different, at least the surface looked very different, due to plate tectonics, right, which is continents and things moving around. And so here we are in Western New York, here, right, home of the Bills. And if you notice, we would actually be south of the equator. So warm, right, it would be a lot warmer and tropical, kind of similar maybe to the climate you'd find in like the Amazon, South America. And then thanks to plate tectonics, we were actually right next to England and Western Europe and Northwest Africa. And so really there was just a shallow ocean that separated modern day Western New York from England. And when we look at the fossils in Devon, England, they're actually very, very similar to the fossils that we find here in Western New York. And the first ever geological map was made in England. And so the guy who made the map, his name is William Smith, when he was identifying the rocks and mapping the fossils and everything, he named the fossils after the counties and the towns where they were first found. And so the fossils from Devon, England became known as the Devonian fossils. And then lo and behold, the same types of fossils were found in North America. So those became Devonian rocks. So here's a geological map, and this is put together by the New York State Museum. And I'll just call your attention to the mint green color here. These are the Devonian period rocks in New York State. There's quite a few of them. If you drive the Thruway, pretty much anything south of the Thruway is Devonian period. And then we're here, right in western New York, right next to the shore of Lake Erie, right in the middle of the Devonian rocks. Now, this is a really cool image I found. It was a aerial photograph of western New York, of the Blaisdell area specifically, taken in 1963. We'll throw it back to a very different time in western New York's history. And so my parents grew up here. They have these stories where there was a lot of industry, right, like Bethlehem Steel, Republic Steel, right? And one of those industries that was growing alongside the steel industry was the cement industry. And so, just like Bethlehem and Republic were sort of these bigger organizations that had presence across the country, so was Penn-Dixie Cement. And Penn-Dixie Cement operated a plant right along the lakeshore. If you're familiar with the wastewater treatment facility, and also there's a restaurant in there, I think it's called Tony's Bayview Drive-In, right along Route 5. That's the modern location of where Penn-Dixie Cement had their cement plant. And here it is. You'll notice the name has changed. There were a couple of changes in ownership through the years, but this is sort of what it looked like. These photos are provided by the Hamburg Historical Society, by the way. And then you'll notice just to the east a little bit here, in the Steelton neighborhood of Blaisdell, was the quarry. So they were making cement on the lakeshore, and they needed the raw material, so they just trucked it in from very close by. And what's cool about this is, so pre-1960s, this was actually an orchard. Right, there was a lot of rural space, there was a lot of agriculture in the town of Hamburg. And so really the land use transitioned from agricultural to industrial, and then eventually residential as this neighborhood grew. Now, Penn-Dixie Cement, this is a really interesting story, sort of the rise and fall of an American conglomerate. They formed in 1926. They were big, they were huge. They supplied cement for the New York State Thruway, for New York City, for Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, a lot of municipal developments, a lot of commercial developments. But by 1970s, overseas competition really crushed Penn-Dixie Cement. They couldn't compete with the low prices. They lost a lot of business, and so they started shutting down their operations. Now, Pennsylvania-Dixie, as the name suggests, right, they had operations from basically here all the way south of the Mason-Dixon line. In 1980, they filed for bankruptcy, and about 2 years later, the assets were disposed, meaning that was it. And so for about 20 years, the quarry here was vacant. And it became a popular party place for teenagers.
The pits.
Yep, the pits, yeah. Yeah, you're nodding heads. In fact, the people who clean our office tell me every night when they come into the office, they say, "Oh, Penn-Dixie, we used to drink beer and chew guns there." So that's what happened. And in the early 1990s, there was a proposal to develop the former quarry into a waste transfer station. And you can imagine the people living in that neighborhood did not want a garbage dump in their neighborhood. And so they said, all right, we need to stop this. And so they joined forces with some fossil collectors who had been sneaking in there to dig up fossils. And their names are Eileen, Elizabeth, and Sheila. I had the pleasure of meeting with them and working with them when I first started here. They shared with me some of the letters that they wrote to town officials. This was like pre-internet and everything, so they had to go to the library, they had to go to town board meetings. And so they wrote, "We bring before you a most unusual proposal. Set aside the Penn-Dixie fossil beds as a geological sanctuary." And they enlisted the help of local professors. This guy, Gordon Baird, wrote a letter. He said, "An ideal concept would be a fossil park used solely for the purpose of fossil collecting. Such a unique landmark would draw people from all over New York, plus adjacent states and Canada." So he was one of the visionaries, along with Liz, Sheila, and Eileen. And in 1993, we formed a nonprofit organization. 1995, the town of Hamburg purchased the land and transferred it to us under conditions that we keep it open for science education, and we clean out all the garbage that had accumulated over 20 years. So we did that, and here we are today. So this is a satellite image on the left of the quarry. It's about 54 acres. And then on the right, of course, these are people digging for fossils. Now we have a lot of folks who visit every year. Last year it was a little over 17,000 visitors. This year we're projecting an even larger attendance. On the left here we have our staff, along with the staff from Explore More Children's Museum. We were doing some team building events in the fall. And then on the right side we have our check-in pavilion up top where folks check in. Every visitor gets a tour. And then we have the buckets and garden trowels that are needed to collect fossils. And so we provide all the tools that are needed because most people have never been fossil collecting before. So just some examples. We get a lot of kids, we get a lot of families, grandparents with grandchildren, school field trips, and we get tourists from all over the world. So these are some examples. When the fossils are pulled out of the ground, they kind of look a little muddy. Once they're cleaned up though and professionally prepared, a lot of them get displayed in private collections and museums. And so these are some examples of the different types of fossils that we have. Of course, our famous fossil is the trilobite here again. And then last spring we had this discovery, which was really wild. So there's been thousands and thousands of people digging for fossils every year. And we thought, okay, we've seen a lot. But these two guys here, Jonathan Hogue and James Hanner, they're two of our employees, and they were not working at the time. They just like to come to work even when they're not working. And they were digging in April, and they found these two rocks here, which were, in first glance, they just kind of looked like little smudges or blobs on the rock. And they sent them off to these two experts here, Dan Cooper and Malcolm Thornley. Dan lives in Cincinnati, and Malcolm lives in Ontario, Mississauga, Ontario. And they were like, hey, we've never seen anything like this before. What do you think? And long story short, Dan and Malcolm sent the pictures of the fossils up the chain to the higher and higher level paleontologists. And finally, we heard from Carlton Brett, Dr. Carlton Brett at University of Cincinnati, and Dr. Carlton Brett says, this is a new species. Yeah, right, it was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. I had never seen anything like this before. It was very weird, and I'll show you why. So here they are digging here. This is actually afterwards. Dr. Carlton Brett was so excited he drove up from Cincinnati with his wife, Betty Lou, just to see the rocks and took those guys out to dinner and everything. And there was sort of a discussion because we allow our visitors to keep all the fossils they find. And our guys here had three options. One was they could keep the fossils themselves for their private collections. One was they could sell them for probably a lot, being a new species and all. And the third option was to donate to science. And so after going out to dinner and everything, they worked out an arrangement where the fossils would be donated to be studied. And James here would get to be a co-author on a manuscript, meaning he would get his name associated with the fossil. Jonathan also got his name associated with the fossil, but not as a co-author, rather as the species will be named after him. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. So of course this was big news. It made it into, we had this article in the Buffalo News, made it into 77 newspapers across the country, which was really exciting. And then we also made the front page of the Buffalo News a few weeks later when we had some international scientists who came out and wanted to see everything for themselves. And then of course we also made it into the Orchard Park Bee. really cute. Is anyone familiar with the story of Archimedes and Eureka? So, okay, so this is classic, right? So what do you say when you discover something? Oh, Eureka. So Archimedes, his famous discovery was kind of basic when we think about it, but he was getting into the bathtub one day, and he noticed that when he got down into the water went up, right? And you think, okay, that's obvious. But he realized that the volume of the water that was displaced was equal to the volume of his body cavity. Right? And this is a huge step forward in science. And so, of course, Archimedes says, Eureka, which means I have found it. Right? He made the discovery. And so our guys here, of course, James Hanna and Jonathan Hope, also have a saying when they made their discovery, when they were out digging and they found something entirely new and different and funny. They said, holy crap. And in fact, they actually printed that in the Orchard Park Week. All right, so what do these things look like when they're professionally prepared and headed to a museum and everything? This is it. So they're called carpoids. And from my point of view, a carpoid is a blob of the tail. They're really interesting animals because they're extinct now. We don't have any idea what they did when they were alive. We can guess. But they had sort of a head here, which was called, or it's similar to a calyx, which is a part of a body of an echinoderm. Their closest living relatives now are the echinoderm family, which are sea stars and urchins. And so, right, but they don't look at all like sea stars or urchins. And that's because the carpoids were asymmetrical. Right, so we think about symmetry, right? Like you can cut an apple in half, or like the human body has a lot of symmetry, right? We have 2 eyes, we have 2 kidneys, we have 2 arms, 2 legs. The carpoids did not have that symmetry. And so they're really one of nature's weird experiments that first appeared and lived for a little while, geologically speaking, and then disappeared. They were outcompeted by other animals who did things a little bit better, more efficient. But for some reason, nature said, okay, we're going to try this weird body form, this sort of cup head and this tail. Right? They don't have eyes, they don't have a face. They would filter food. They would essentially pull water in through a feeding apparatus and then sort of process it internally. And then the same apparatus was used to expel waste. So like modern echinoderms, their mouth is right next to their anus. It's the same thing with the carpoids. So they're really strange. Has anyone ever read Hunter S. Thompson, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas? Yeah, no, okay. There's a quote in there. He says something about one of the characters. It's one of God's own prototypes. Too weird to live, too rare to die. That was sort of my view on these things, right? This was one of God's prototypes. Didn't last very long. We don't see them today. But it's a really funky animal from the fossil record that was found here in Western New York. So in science, this is known as a Lazarus taxon. Is anyone familiar with the story of Lazarus? Yeah, right? So what was his thing? He died.
And he came back.
And he came back, right? He came back. He was brought back. And I found this really interesting image online. Kind of looks like the mummy here coming out of the tomb, right? And he's back, baby. So Lazarus taxon in science is a species, or taxon is another word for species, that disappears from the fossil record only to reappear millions of years later. And so the carpoids that were found here at Penn Dixie in Hamburg, they disappeared for some 25 to 30 million years. And then their discovery in Penn Dixie brought them back, right, in a figurative sense, and extended the family tree for that particular type of animal. So if you go back to that cartoon from Ray Troll, this is where the carpoids first appeared in the Cambrian period. And now, thanks to the discovery, we know that they lived at least through the Devonian period. So just to wrap up, just some notes and things from Penn Dixie. So like I said, last year our attendance was a little over 17,000. We now have 25 employees during our peak season, which was pretty amazing. We are having a program at the beginning of June where we dig for fossils in a newly opened part of the quarry. We also have some construction that's underway. We are finally building some bathrooms. It's been millions of years in development. And then I just wanted to share this because it's something the staff's really proud of. So I just wanted to show you our revenue charts, our historical revenue. And so our revenue includes general admission, field trips, special events, private tours, birthday parties, scout programs, outreach programs. This is what it looks like. So we're really excited to start taking off here. And we're really happy and honored to be part of the community and to do what we do, which is teach science. So with that, thank you. Oh, thank you. All right, I guess there's, yeah, time for questions. Yes?
What's the general admission price?
So for adults is 16, seniors is 15, and children is 13. And if you're a veteran, I think you're free. Yeah.
Thank you.
How many years did that represent when they first came and how long they lasted? I know on the chart they're just those little lines.
Oh, yeah. Let me go back here.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so how many years does this represent? So the Carpoids went from 542 to about 350, so 442, almost 200 million years. Yeah, right, it's really strange, like how did that animal survive for so long? Yes?
Did it have a spinal cord?
No, they did not. Yeah, and that's the weird thing about them, is you saw that tail.
Yeah.
Right, so the question is, do they have a spinal cord? So when these animals were first discovered, not at Penn-Dixie, but at another site, people wondered, is that tail actually a primitive spinal column? And I think the answer right now is no, but it was part of a bigger debate for a long time. Yes?
Two questions. Why there's such a concentration of the fossils, and how long can you keep digging before you run out?
Okay. Those are good questions, right? So why are there so many fossils at Penn-Dixie in Hamburg? And the second question is, would we ever run out? Or how long? So the good news is, I'll answer the second one first. We don't think we'll ever run out. There's a lot of fossils. There's millions and millions. And believe it or not, those rock layers that are under Penn-Dixie, that are in Blaisdell, they extend through all of western New York. And because of our position south of the equator in those warm tropical waters, during the Devonian period, we were the perfect environment for marine life. So it was very similar to modern coral reefs, where you find thousands and thousands of species and all sorts of fish and invertebrates and everything. It was very, very similar to that. So the fossils are here all throughout western New York. The thing is, most places in western New York are developed, and so you'll never be able to dig there because you'd have to tear down some stuff. We had the benefit of being an abandoned quarry where in the 1960s and everything they did all the work. And then keeping it preserved in that state is part of our mission. And so that's our resource for the community. You're welcome. Yes?
Do you have any brochures?
Yes, I do. I actually have them in my trunk. I can go grab some if it's all right. Yeah? Yes?
Are you part of a larger exploratory scientific group? Are you an arm of something larger?
Yeah, so the question is, are we part of another group or something larger, like an arm of it? The answer is no, we are an independent organization. We do have many partners that include universities and museums, but essentially we are a standalone organization. Yes?
Do you have summer camp this year?
We do. The question is, do we have summer camp? And we are not offering summer camp this year. We think it will return once we have bathroom facilities constructed. Yeah, it's a big thing we're ready for here.
Well, thank you so much for coming. presentation on the dining account management system, so please stay for that if you're interested in hearing about that.
All done.